To develop spiritual power in Christianity is very important, because if you don't develop spiritual power, Satan is going to get the better of you. So you need to know how to develop spiritual power. And when I talk about developing spiritual power, I'm talking about developing spiritual power in light of the power of the life of Jesus within you. That is the power of the new nature. And I'm also speaking about power whereby you get the fullness of God for ministry. All such power is to obey God. And if you're not filled with that power and you're not walking in that power and according to that power, Satan and evil spirits will get the better of you. You really need to be filled with power and surrendered to power continually. Otherwise, Satan and his demons will rule over you. How do you get that spiritual power? How can you develop it? How can you make it stronger, more powerful? I'd rather just deal with how can I make it more powerful. The way that you make it more powerful is this. You will feel like serving God at various times in your life. You will feel very spiritual. You will feel very motivated to go to church, to read the Bible. You will feel that you want to demonstrate the fruit of the Spirit. And when you feel like it, you do it, and so the power of God comes forth through you and you obey Him. But if you want to develop spiritual strength, I'm talking real spiritual power where you're consistent. It's the dry time. That is, get the time where there is no feeling at all for God. In fact, the feeling that you have is to rebel. The feelings that you have are actually the feelings of the flesh. You can sense that you want to do evil. You want to think evil things. You want to do evil things. When you are at that point, if you can make a decision, and power is given, by the way, to make a decision to do this, but if at that point you can completely disregard your feelings, that will be called the death to the flesh, and choose a spiritual way, make a spiritual choice when you absolutely do not feel like it whatsoever, that is how you develop spiritual power. It is obeying God when everything in you does not feel like obeying God. It's when actually, if you were to describe it, it's like everything in you wants to do evil. And don't be surprised, church, if you find that some days you just want to be wicked and you want to sin and you've been free from things and suddenly all those desires are back. You haven't sinned yet, but those desires are back. This is part of the normal Christian experience. Don't be condemned by that. Satan will try and come and trick you and say, look at your desires, you've sinned. He'll try and use guilt against you and go, look at your wickedness. Look what you want to do. You're craving evil. You're craving to give into your flesh appetites, but you actually haven't sinned yet. You have to watch the devil's tricks. What you're doing is you're getting a sense of your rebellion. You're actually sensing this flesh wants to raise itself and exalt itself in my life. How can you develop spiritual power and have true spiritual strength for this purpose? This is not for self-glorification, to become proud, or to show off, to glory over other people. I'm talking about developing spiritual power so that you can obey the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The way that you develop spiritual power is this way, church. Obey God when you feel like it. But when you don't feel like it, especially obey God. And when you do that, you will find you become more and more obedient. Spiritually, you become more and more powerful. You become more consistent in walking in the Spirit, walking according to the nature of Jesus. So, to close on that, when you get to that point, a certain day, where you think, what's happening? all I want to do is just, in terms of my fleshly cravings, go back to my old life. I want to go back to my old ways, my old desires. Don't be disheartened. That's just your flesh. That's just normal. See it as an opportunity whereby you can go, here's my chance. I can develop real spiritual power here by obeying God and doing what the Holy Spirit wants me to do, even though I don't feel like doing it. That's how you develop spiritual power unto obedience.